At Arizona State University, we're bringing world-class education from our globally acclaimed faculty to you. Ranked #1 in innovation for 10 consecutive years and #2 among public universities for employability. ASU isn't just ahead of the curve, it's creating new paths to success. Earn your degree from the nation's most innovative university. Online, that's a degree better. Explore more than 300 undergraduate, graduate, and certificate programs at asuonline.asu.edu.
The drill instructor came in from another platoon and tried to steal my platoon's guidon. And he's on the other side of the bed. I'm on the opposite side of the bed, and we're laying tug of war. At this time, I probably lost 10 pounds, so I'm at 150 pounds. I graduated boot camp at 145, just to put perspective. Jeez. And I'm laying tug of war with this guy. Well, I throw him, I don't know how, but I throw him over the bed, and he fell. This is a Marine. He's a drill instructor, and they're intimidating and scary looking because you're just a little kid. When he got up, his face was like, "I'm going to murder you." I literally ran around. I mean, I can't fight this guy. That's not a thing that happens, right? And I'm running around the squad bay for my life, holding this guide on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the next episode of Game of Crimes with Murph in the Morning. I'm your host, Murph. And let me tell you, this is an exciting episode for me for two reasons. One, because we've got a guest that I've been trying to get on the show for quite some time. This man is super busy. The fact that he's given us time today just makes my whole freaking week. But the second reason is this is episode 200 of the Game of Crimes. Who in the heck ever thought we'd make it to episode 200? I mean, you remember when Morgan and I first started this almost 4 years ago. We never dreamt we'd be this far. And here in a couple of weeks, we'll be starting our 5th year of the Game of Crimes. I understand completely this is all because of you, the loyal listeners that come back every week. I don't know what's wrong with you people, but I appreciate the heck out of you. You know I do. I love you all. And the other reason is because of the great guests I bring on here. It's certainly not because of Murph. And today is no exception. You see this young man sitting here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is an American patriot. He's a true hero. He's a retired United States Marine Corps veteran, combat veteran, former MARSOC, which he'll explain all that to us here later. We're talking about a man who has done, I think it was a total of 7 deployments to Iraq, to Afghanistan, to other parts of the world. You're looking at an American hero here. I'm getting goosebumps just by saying that. So we're going to get into all of his background here. But ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my good friend, Cody Alford. Cody, brother, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Dude, thank you for having me, bro. I'm like, I know I can make this work. We've tried for months to make this work. Yeah.
I follow you on social media, and I see how busy you are, and you will hear no complaints from me. I knew the time would come. And what better guest to have on episode 200? 200.
I'm so excited. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, you've heard me say this about some of the other former military veterans that we've had on here, all studs and studettes. But here's what makes today's story so special about Cody. This involves stories about resilience, perseverance, survival, never giving up. Oh my gosh, wait till you hear some of this. Being motivated, adapting to your circumstances and making those circumstances work for you, and being the best that you can possibly be at whatever you do. And that's his message. That's Cody's message now. We're going to build up to it, though. But just think about this. He went into the Marine Corps straight out of high school. I think you enlisted at 17.
Oh, yes.
Right? And by the time you got boot camp, you had turned 18. Gave his life to serving our country, to protecting us. And then when he gets out, you're leaving a job that taught you how to protect yourself, your brothers and your sisters in arms, basically to kill people in open combat. Then you return to the United States to civilian life. How many opportunities are there out there that they advertise for those skill sets? Not a lot.
It's very
and
middle.
That's what Cody ran into, and he's going to talk about how he dealt with it and how he has become a successful and motivational, inspirational teacher and speaker. I heard this guy speak. This was in South Carolina a couple of years ago. When he finished, I wanted to go get the American flag, go kill somebody. You just motivated the crap out of me, Cody. So it's great stuff, brother. But like we always do every week, we start off with our small town police blotter. I hit Cody up with this last night and this morning, and he graciously agreed to come on and participate. Got a quick disclaimer here, Cody. This is a show about crime. We talk about bad people. We talk about bad people doing bad things to good people. Now, we take our stories very seriously, but we never want to miss an opportunity to have a good laugh at some of the stupid things that criminals do, people who should have selected a different occupation. Cody's out in Idaho. You guys know I'm in Florida. Cody's going to bring us a story about somebody in Idaho. Go with it, brother.
Yeah, this guy's a real genius. Idaho man busted using homemade barcode at Walmart. So essentially, he went to go buy a $300 grill. He bought it for the price of a soup can because he put a customized barcode for the soup on the grill. Got busted. And it says right here, Caldwell Chief of Police Rex Ingram tells Local 12, "Sorry, Mr. Rockwell, your tactics didn't work this time, but we appreciate your creativity. We know that times are tough, but your ingenuity got you some county soup for dinner. Figured they were going to take a jab about the meals. You can't resist it." Rockwell was charged with burglary, which is a felony. So this dude lives in one of the greatest gun law states. Got a felony for a $300 grill by using a creative barcode disguise. That's crazy. It happened at Walmart too. So not only do you have the people at Walmart, like that have you ever seen that Instagram channel?
Oh yeah.
Now you have
Spandex channel.
Yeah. Now you have the barcodes of Walmart. It's crazy.
You hate to give these guys credit for anything. I mean, it's a pretty stupid thing to do, but that was pretty creative to come up with that idea, right?
Yeah, it definitely worked. It worked until it didn't work. Everything works until it doesn't work. And that's right. The thing. But, $300 for a felony, that's just
not worth it.
Yeah, it's not worth it, but it can't be that tough because he's trying to get a grill. It's not like he was trying to get food. It was a grill. So
yeah.
We got 4th of July coming up, so it makes sense.
All right. Thank you, man. I appreciate you reading that. Now, I don't know how much knowledge you have about Florida, Cody, but we're known for our stupid criminals here. There's actually a show out called Florida Man, and the guy reports all the stupid things that these criminals do. And so as I was looking for a story here in Florida today, and there's never a shortage, believe me, I went into the Florida Man archives, and this is an older story, but it's so worth telling because this is a typical Florida criminal story. And it's titled, "Florida Man and Girlfriend Trapped in Unlocked Closet for 2 Days." Geniuses, right? So we got a Florida man and his girlfriend. They dialed 911 to be rescued because they thought they were trapped in an unlocked closet for 2 days. Now, these geniuses are John Arwood, 31 years old, and Amber Campbell, 25. They told police that someone had chased them into the closet at Daytona State College in the Marine and Environmental Science Center on a Sunday. My first question is, what the heck are you doing in there on a Sunday? But once they were inside the janitor's closets, they couldn't get out. But it wasn't until the following Tuesday, 2 days later, that Arwood decided to call 911. I guess that little light bulb came on. When Daytona Beach police arrived, they discovered that the door doesn't even have a lock. It wasn't locked. It doesn't have a lock. Now, the cops inside the closet, they found human feces. That's kind of gross. But they also found copper scouring pads, which are often used to smoke crack. That was all found inside the closet. Luckily for Florida Man and his girlfriend, they didn't find any of the actual drugs because I'm guessing they probably used everything up. And that's why they called police, because they wanted to re-up. Both were charged with trespassing. Campbell, the girl, was also charged with violating her probation because in 2013, she was arrested after escaping from a mental health treatment facility where she was finally apprehended. She fooled police so that she could slip out of her handcuffs and run into the woods. Okay. And then Armwood, he's also been in jail 5 times since 2000. His offenses range from armed burglary, possession of more than 200 grams of marijuana, and fleeing law enforcement. The door didn't even have a lock. Makes you want to go try cocaine, doesn't it? Crack?
Yeah, I know. That was some good stuff, apparently.
The only thing missing from that story is meth. And we have our number one rule here on Game of Crimes is kids don't do meth. So I didn't bring a meth story on today. But to Cody, thank you for playing along. I know it's silly, but it kind of lightens the mood to get things started here because we do talk about some serious topics, and we're going to do the same thing today. If you're wondering, how could an old man like me, just never been in the military, as a cop all my life, and this stud military hero, combat veteran over here, how did we come to know each other? Well, you've heard me talk a lot about the Southern California Gang Conference. Actually, we're recording this in mid-May. And in a couple of weeks, I'm going out for this year's conference again. I think this will be my 8th year supporting those folks out there. But 2 years ago, there were some people showed up with Lou Velozzi. You guys remember Lou? He's a retired ATF agent. Lou was actually, Cody, he was in episode number 4 of Game of Crimes. Yeah, almost 4 years ago. I'd been on his podcast and had gotten to be friends with him over there. But Lou was there, and he brought out not only Cody here, but he brought out Sid Gordon, who is Cody's shirt there, Core Medical Group. He's the CEO of that. Sid is a avid supporter of military and law enforcement. You've heard me talk about his military appreciation weekend. His brother-in-law happens to be the actor John Bernthal, which if you've seen the Punisher series or you've seen The Accountant or The Accountant 2, he stars in both of those. My wife and I went to see Accountant 2 just last night, and Bernthal he knocked it out of the park. He does much better than that other actor that's on there, but maybe I'm a little prejudicial about that too. I was on his podcast. It hasn't come out yet. He had me out in his area out in California. I did an interview with him, and he's agreed to come on Game of Crimes, so he'll be a future guest here. But then also, not this year, but last year, you and I attended the Military Appreciation Weekend at Sid's home in Beaufort, South Carolina. So we got to hang out there. And just to give you an idea of who comes to these things, if you folks remember Jenna and Seth Griffith, they were episodes 144 and 145. They were there that year. We had Nick Koumoulatsos. He was episode 165 here on Game of Crimes. If you remember Mick, big Greek fella, stud. Byron Rogers, who was episode 179 here, he was out there also. Then all those Nick and Byron are both former Marines. I think Seth was former Air Force, right? I believe that's his background. And then also, you see me wearing this shirt here. So it's the United States Marine Corps Scout Sniper Association. You folks know I wasn't in the military. I wasn't in the Marines, but I support military at every opportunity I get. And at the Military Appreciation Weekend, there was a gentleman there by the name of J.T. Taylor, who was the president of this association. It wasn't long after we got home that they held a little fundraiser here in Orlando, and he invited me to come over and just forgot the section of town we were in. Really nice section. It wasn't downtown. But I got a shirt out of it. So I will do everything I can to support military as well as law enforcement and other first responders as long as this show is on the air. If you don't support that, you probably want to go find another podcast because that's what this whole thing is about. We're bringing studs and studettes on here to tell their story. Okay, so now if I could shut up, we'll get Cody going here. If you would, Cody, just tell us a little bit about your background, where you grew up, your family dynamics. In high school, did you play sports? Did you go to college? That kind of thing.
Yep. So I grew up in Dallas, Texas, specifically a place called Duncanville, Texas, which is about 15-ish minutes south of Dallas. I did play football. I played soccer growing up as a kid. And then when I made it to, I think, 7th and 8th grade was the first time football was introduced. Before that, it was like private league, and that just wasn't in our budget to do as a kid. So I played football in high school or all the way up throughout my high school career. I thought I was good, but I was the smallest white kid on like an all-black 5A football team in Texas, which is intimidation factor is a big thing there. So when you're like I think I graduated my senior year at 160 pounds, and everyone else was like in like the low to mid twos, the just massive O-line, D-line, and I just had a blast. I love the team dynamics. But I still, to this day, don't understand football. Like, I don't know the plays. I was a senior playing defensive end. Hey, who do I hit? Apparently it just was never in my cards, but like the team dynamic was really exciting. My dad, he was a police officer for 41 years in Dallas County. Yeah, so that dynamic was pretty hard growing up as a kid. He was always gone. He was actually on Cops, the TV show, so I got to see my dad on the TV.
Very cool.
Yeah, it was crazy. It was this crazy shootout he was in, and there was actually a crackhead that was shooting at my dad with a shotgun, and it was just a really interesting story he told. And
he didn't get hurt, did he?
He got shot in his vest, luckily. Wow. So he got ricocheted from the buckshot and ricocheted off the side of the house and hit him in his chest. But my dad, he's been dragged by cars, hit by cars, you name it. I mean, my dad was a cop back in the day where I think he started off as a constable. So he had a 38 special. I have all his guns from being a police officer. So they've evolved from the revolver to the semi-automatic, from the the 38 special, 357. He's got the Beretta 9 mil. Then I think they finished with the Smith and Wesson 40. I think that's what they had at the very end of his career. But yeah, so my childhood dynamics was pretty cool, pretty normal. I was a computer nerd. My dad was super into technology. So all his old computers I would get, and I'd play video games on them, like war games, or I did a lot of art. I spent a lot of my time going on paint. I love that stuff. I was always drawing as a kid, and ever since a young age, I always had the dream to become, a Marine Scout sniper. And my parents knew that. There was never any rebuttal. My dad was a Marine, never talked about it. You wouldn't even know unless he actually said something. I never shot a gun, never went hunting, never did any of that stuff as a kid. And so to transition from, high school kid to going to the Marine Corps, it was all foreign to me. I had zero bad habits because I knew nothing. The closest thing to any of that, I played paintball when I got older. So I enjoyed that aspect of, oh, this is kind of scary. Like, it's fun, exciting, and to be hunted. And so I enlisted at 17. As soon as I graduated, I went to boot camp. I think it was 7 days later. And beyond that, my entire life was completely different. And I'm just super, super stoked for all that journey. So I joined the Marine Corps in 2003. And then
before you go into that, let me ask you a question. Did college never come into your mind during that time? Okay.
Yeah, I ended up getting a college degree, but that was while I was active duty. But yeah, college was never... I didn't want to do anything besides be a Scout sniper. You couldn't sway me otherwise.
I did a lot of research on you before today, but where did that attraction come from?
I remember when I was in daycare, at first I really wanted to be an Army Ranger. I went to the daycare that I was in. They had this Ranger poster. And, oh man, that guy looks cool. I want to be a Ranger. And then
in your daycare.
In my daycare, it's Texas, yeah. And so I remember wanting to do that. And then I saw some documentaries on Scout snipers. I watched every Discovery Channel show that was out there. That one Buds class for Navy SEALs that they always played. I watched, wake up at like 3. I'd find it on the TV channel. I'd just keep on scrolling to find the next time it's going to come on. And one day I saw the movie Sniper with Tom Berenger. I'm like, bro, done, game over. And what led me to the Marine Corps versus the other branches of service was the Marine Corps was the only one that had Scout sniper, not just a sniper. Scout sniper, that sounds cool, and then you start understanding like the attrition rate in school and like how, at the time it was like almost 50%, 60% attrition rate, meaning almost half the candidates that try out wouldn't pass. That sounds super awesome, It was game over from there, just at a young age. I remember my senior year, one of my counselors, something like that, they bring the students in, they go over your courses that you should take, or it might be prior to your senior year. And she's like, well, if you do this, it'll help you for college credits. I'm like, listen, lady, I'm joining the Marine Corps as soon as I graduate. I don't care about college. She literally threw my papers behind her in a dramatic way. She's like, well, what do you want to talk about? We have 15 minutes. And she was like super cool, but yeah, there was not another option for me.
That's admirable that you knew at such a young age what you wanted to do. I knew at about the age of 10 I wanted to be a cop. And I kind of got that in common with you, that because my kids, I'm not sure that they knew what they wanted to do after they got out of high school until they actually did something.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. They grew up without the internet also, right? Your kid?
Internet was going. They had cell phones. We made them wait till they were teenagers, but
yeah,
they were the only kids that didn't have them.
Yeah, I didn't get my first cell phone until I came back from my first combat deployment. And I remember when we did have phones, I would get my dad's phone for Friday night and I would like plug in my friend's number, like, hey, what's up? Where are we going? But I think, the imagination and the curiosity, and really my childhood was really just waiting for my opportunity to go. Like I was just waiting 18 years to go do this thing that I wanted to do. It's so awesome. I'm super grateful to have that level of, like, I knew what I wanted to do. And I find it fascinating, especially with these young kids this day and age, that, I want to do this when I grow up. Dude, that's super awesome, because a lot of people don't. They get trapped on the internet, or they get trapped in all these options that are out there, and they don't know how to really find something, because a lot of them are influenced by outside entities, their parents, society, money, fame, fortune, all these types of things. And advice, what do you want to do? And that's what I wanted to do.
Yeah, good for you, brother. I mean, that's what you want to do. You can focus and you go do it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Have you run into a lot of people when they'll talk to you about your military career? They were not military, and they're like, "Oh, I always thought about joining the military." Did that ever happen to you?
Yeah, a lot. And
Because the Marines that's the Marines.
yeah, everyone's like, "Oh, I was going to," and I try to tell them, "But you did it. That's okay." But the longer you wish you did, the longer you wish you could have did it, but you didn't do it, the more you're just going to eat yourself up. And life has a really interesting way and dynamics of like everything that needs to happen is supposed to happen, and that's all good. But it takes a certain type of mindset to see it that way, because living with like the regret, remorse of not doing something, that just eats you alive, and it keeps you from seeing what's literally right in front of you, all the things you have worked your butt off for. And it's the same thing with like selection. Oh, I was going to go to selection, but I didn't. And I'm like, of course, but you didn't. Because not only did you have to go to the military, or you went to the military, you had to do that hard thing, but you have to go into selection or go into some other type of process. You have to sign up for that, and no one's making you. It's all choice. And most people don't realize they have a choice, and then they don't know what to do with choices. They just kind of wait for things to work out for them,
There's a passage in the Bible that I like. It's what's happened has happened, and what's going to happen tomorrow, don't worry about it. Today has enough worries of its own. So if you didn't do it, move on. Don't sit around and regret it. I mean, I guess we all have regrets to a certain degree, but all right. So you go into, where do you go to basic training at? You're in the Marines now.
Yep. So I went to, since I was past the Mississippi line, I went to San Diego, California. So MCRD, Marine Corps Recruiting Depot, San Diego. Went to boot camp there. It was freaking awesome. I enjoyed every second of it. Yeah, it sucked. There was definitely some hard parts, but I consumed anything military related I could leading up to this point. So at this point in my life, I was actually living out my fantasies and my dreams of watching this stuff on TV. It's really cool. I also graduated a company honorman. So I was the guide. So I was the guy in charge of my platoon. And I graduated number 1 out of my boot camp class, which was really cool because in the Marine, in high school, football was the only measure of a man, young man, or any sports. Are you good? Whatever. And my size kept me from getting that opportunity. But in the Marine Corps, it wasn't the case. My skill, my value, my leadership, my determination provided the value, not my size. So it was a whole new perspective. Like, man, I could really be successful here. I could actually make something out of this. So that was a really cool kind of epiphany I had at 18 years old of, wow, the sky's the limit here. You're not limited by your sex, your age, your gender, none of that stuff. It's just, do you provide value or do you not? It's pretty simple as that. You're a leader or you're a follower. You're a good follower and subordinate, or you're not. You're a good leader or you're not. It just kind of boiled down to those basic simplicities. And I really was drawn to that.
When you were in high school, did people come to you for advice? Were you in somewhat of a very minor leadership role there? Or this just all exploded once you got into the Marine Corps? When
I look back, I remember in football, I got they called it the Fighting Panther Award, because I was determined. We were Duncanville Panthers. That was our mascot, the Panther. And I was, there's those guys on the football team that are motivated, like, come on, you can do it. And sometimes it's a cheap motivation. And there's those guys that are really pushing people and getting more out of people. And I like to think I found myself in that category. So I was inspirational, motivating by my size and stature. I didn't quit. I didn't bow down. I didn't buckle under pressure. But like I said, I saw the team and I wanted the team to be successful. So I remember when I was on the scout defense, helping our offense, was getting ready to go to state for the varsity team. Remember, I wanted them to have a great look. I didn't want to hit them softly and take it easy on them because they represent us and I represent them. And if I go half-ass on them, how are they going to perform downrange or on the game, on the field? And so I always put out all the effort. That's one thing. I didn't know plays. I wasn't a star player, but I definitely put out, and that was non-negotiable for me. Why else am I there?
Well, and you love being a part of that team concept. And I did too. And, if you think about it, that's a lot of the gangs. They don't have a father figure in their life and they don't have anything to belong to. And these gang members are accepting them to come in and join us, even though they treat them like crap. That's how much people like to be part of a team. I like being part of a team. I loved being the cop, and we had our own gang. It was bigger than any other street gang was out there. It's just we were spread out pretty thin throughout the United States. But I mean, I love that. I love the fact that you have that realization at a very young age of what a team can accomplish just by you've got your little role, but as long as you do that the best you can, you'll have a successful team. And
Yeah.
I'm telling you things that you teach now, so you got to love this. What's this old man telling me all this crap?
No. You're good. I mean, you're bringing back some very key moments in my life that maybe I haven't really given that much attention to or thought back to those phase lines. But that's it. It's just even in the military, I was a good subordinate. If you're my boss, I want you to be successful.
Yep.
I want you to not do any work. That's my role. My job is to make sure you don't work, because you have a very specific role. That's get us the missions, get us support, get us the gear and the training that we need, not deal with all the other dumb stuff. So if I can be a good subordinate, not to brown nose, not to be we call it a spotlight ranger, where you're only there doing the right thing when people are looking at you. But if I can just do the right thing at all times to the best of my ability, and the right thing sometimes is a very murky waterline, I get the job done. You didn't tell me how to because I didn't ask you how to. You just told me what needed to happen and I made it happen.
There you go.
But that's what people miss out these days. They're like, I'm not the one in charge. You're never going to be, because your mindset is a victim. You only want to perform if you get recognized, or you only want to perform if you have the position. That's the dumbest thing ever. And I like to think that's why I was so successful in the Marine Corps, because I was just whatever role that I fit, I was that role. And I made sure I did above and beyond what my role called for, because it's the whole team concept. Yep. It's a team mission. Cody Alford doesn't go on a mission by himself. Cody's team goes on a mission. And when my team is successful, my team did the job. I was just there to support them, and that's how it goes.
And we're going to talk about how that paid off for you here shortly in your career in the Marine Corps. When you were in basic training, do you recall any memorable moments that might have been funny or stupid? And don't name names, but things that still stick in your mind, either what was I thinking or what was that idiot thinking?
Oh, man. I don't know if most of my things can be said on this podcast.
It's explicit.
Okay. I remember this guy. So I had two Ugandans and two native descendant windtalkers in my boot camp class. And the two Ugandans, one was a prince and one was his bodyguard. And the bodyguard, his name was Oguno. And this dude he was built like a gorilla. He was massive. Well, in the Marine Corps, you all take showers together, right?
Yeah.
They cram in like 100 guys in this little prison shower, and it is just demoralizing, right? Well, Oguno comes in there, dude. I'm like, oh my God, what is that thing, dude? It was the biggest third arm I've ever seen in my life. And it's not like I've done research on what's the male genitalia look like, but bro, this thing was insane. And I remember Oguno he had gunshot wounds, stab wounds. This guy was in the mix from his homeland. And he was so scary and intimidating. I remember one time he yelled at somebody, and it was like the Ongo, right? The back, like his jaw detached, and it was just like this, like, dude, I was scared. And I wasn't even the one getting yelled at by this guy. It was really interesting dynamics, but yeah, boot camp. I remember this one time we're in, I don't know if they call it combat phase, but basically you leave the recruit depot and you head to Camp Pendleton and you do like all your like combat training. I remember we get all of our gear because you get you get different types of gear. Now you get your flak jacket from Vietnam, you get your Alice pack, and you're like, oh my God, I'm actually about to carry a gun. This is so cool. Shoot during this phase. And I was the guide. So the guide has the guide on, which is a flagpole with a flag with your platoon number on there. Mm-hmm. And you have to guard that thing with your life. Well, at nighttime, you break down the guide on to small and wrap it up. And the drill instructors are always trying to steal it. Well, the guy in charge of the platoon, but when I say in charge, you're just in charge of the other recruits. You control nothing.
Yeah.
You're a number like everybody else. But my bed was in front of everybody. So it was right when you walk into a squad bay, there's the guide's bed and all the racks of the other recruits are there. And the drill instructor came in from another platoon and tried to steal my platoon's guide on. And he's on the other side of the bed. I'm on the opposite side of the bed, and we're playing tug of war. Bro, I am literally, at this time, I probably lost 10 pounds, so I'm like 150 pounds. I graduated boot camp at 145, just to put perspective.
Jeez.
And I'm playing tug of war with this guy. Well, I throw him, I don't know how, but I throw him over the bed, and dude, he fell. This is a Marine. He's a drill instructor, and they're intimidating and scary looking because you're just a little kid. And dude, when he got up, his face was, I'm going to murder you. And dude, I literally ran around. I mean, I can't fight this guy. Like that's not a thing that happens, right?
Yeah.
And I'm running around the squad bay for my life, holding this guide on. And this dude gets a hold of me, bro. He takes his finger and he sticks it all the way down, like in my clavicle right here, sticks his finger in me. And I'm just like, what the heck is going on? And I'm just like, discipline, I don't buckle. Like, dude, the dumbest things, the stupidest things.
Ready to make a real impact every day? Join the Active Day Home Care team and help clients maintain their independence in the comfort of their own homes. Make a difference in someone's life as you provide essential daily assistance and protect their health and happiness. Earn up to $20 an hour and enjoy additional perks like optional daily pay, 401k, paid time off, ongoing educational training, and more. Join a team that values care, compassion, and your professional growth. Visit activeday.com to apply.
I remember when it's time to eat, the platoon goes in first, the guide goes in last. And how it works is if the guide is done eating, all the tables are done. So I'm the last guy to get my food and eat. And if they tell me, hey, guide, you have 2 minutes to eat, we're running behind schedule, you just got to get up. I'm like, damn, everyone's going to be pissed at me. So you try to cram your food and you get up and everyone's done. Or the first person at the first table, as soon as they're done, that table's done. As soon as that table's up, the next table has to get up. And it's just this whole chain reaction. Yeah. Well, in the Marine Corps boot camp, you can only have one item in each hand. You can't walk around like this. You can't walk like this, right? And if you have a packet of mayonnaise, one packet in each hand, right? And there was certain things you weren't allowed to grab. You weren't allowed to grab Gatorade. It was water or milk. That was the only thing you could have. You weren't allowed Gatorade, soda, even though there was in the machines, because other big military people, like normal, already military people, they were in the same chow facility. And so any illegal items that any of the recruits had got taken from them and thrown onto my plate. And I remember this one time, one of my drill instructors threw all their food on my plate, poured all their Gatorade and all the Coke and all the stuff they were trying to smuggle onto my plate, smashed it with my hand, opened up all the packets of mustard and mayonnaise, and he said, eat. And bro, I wanted calories, dude. I was already losing weight there. They wouldn't give me double rations. And so I remember just loving in all this nasty crap because I didn't care at this point because I needed to sit, not labor. And I got tired of that. I'm like, wait a second. If the only way I get more food is by them taking food off other people's plates that they weren't supposed to have, well, how can I get more food that I can have on my plate? And so in boot camp, there's a thing. If you're a skinny guy, they deemed you a double rat. So you had this little tab that you put on your button on your sleeve pocket for all the meals, and it said double rat, and that means you got double portions. And if you're a fat kid, I forgot what they were called, fat kid or they were called something else, and they were getting half of everything, like lettuce and half a portion of stuff to lose weight. Yeah. And so one night, and we all have a stamp kit because you had to make your double rat tab. So one night I said, screw this. I waited for the drill instructors to leave. I emptied my sea bag. I grabbed my stamp kit. I grabbed my little tab, and I make my own double rat tab. I hide it into my pocket. We get to the chow hall. My platoon goes in. Now it's my time to come in. So I take down my guide on. I go inside, and I put my tray up there, and I pull up my tab. I'm like, ma'am, double rats, and she's giving me double the food. This is epic. I get down to the end of the line. I did it again so I don't get in trouble. But I spent the rest of my boot camp doing that. And I learned in boot camp, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. If you're not trying to find a way, what are you doing? And honestly, when I say cheated, I didn't cheat on tests, but I tried to game the system as much as I could. And that's what was so significant about the military is tell people in the same way in life and business and entrepreneurship, all this stuff, there's left and right lateral limits. There's green, there's yellow, and there's red. And most people stay in the green because that's what they're told to do. The adventurous ones go into the yellow, but most never venture into the red. But when you go into the red, you have this much room before you hit the point of no return. This is all red right here. And I operated in the red as much as possible. It's still within my rights, but most people never did that. And I definitely did because Why wouldn't I? Why would I want to see what I can get away with? You want me to be this picture perfect Ken doll, but yet you want me to go do the most hellacious things that are impossible to do and achieve with the limited amount of support, the worst gear known to man. But yet you want me to be this robot here? That doesn't make sense. Maybe that wasn't the right way, but it all worked out for me, and it worked out for my buddies who kind of had that same mindset. And I knew at a very young age in the Marine Corps, wait a second, this is a game. And I kind of carried that mindset throughout my entire career. Find a way. Now, if you get busted, you pay those consequences. But what's the consequences in combat? Death. Okay, so that's the worst case scenario. Anything besides that is not that big of a deal. And so in a training, or we call it garrison stateside training, garrison life, in a garrison mindset, how far can I push this envelope to work smarter, not harder? Honestly, dude, I still do that to this day, but that's definitely why I was successful in the military, because I was willing to go into that other spectrum that most guys weren't, because they were scared, even though it was in their left and right lateral limit. Though making my own stamp was never authorized, they never told me I couldn't do it. So, hey, wait a second. You didn't tell me I couldn't, so I did it anyways.
That's your defense.
Yeah.
I guess the cliche would be thinking outside the box.
Yeah. But you heard that a lot. We want guys to think outside the box. But my whole thing was, what if there was never a box in the first place? What if we just do stuff? And that's probably the most frustrating thing about the military, is like push the whole thing outside the box. But it's not always like that. Even in special operations, it wasn't always like that. How are you the guy in charge and you have nothing but a box over your mindset and the way you do things? And, that's the Marine Corps for you.
Well, that's the way we've always done it. How many times have you heard that?
I remember this. We're doing training. My team, this is my last deployment. We're getting ready to deploy to Iraq, northern Iraq. And I'm now in charge of a company. So I'm in charge of 4 special operations team. And when I get overseas, I'm in charge of 2 SEAL platoons, an ODA, SF Green Beret ODA. I'm managing teams in Jordan, Lebanon, plus operating in Iraq. And I remember we're doing a final exercise to get approved by SOCOM and our command staff at MARSOC. And one of my senior leaders is, why don't you guys have tripods? Why aren't you employing your tripods with your machine guns? We are running from a helicopter to an objective. We're not going to go run with tripods. It doesn't. He's, well, that's how we've always done it. And I'm thinking back to my day when this last time this guy was in armed conflict, not in a leadership role. That was the thing that always irked me. That's how we've always done it. But then you look at the Marines, the Marine Raiders from World War II, they got beards. Granted, they had water rations. They had long hair. Look at the guys in Vietnam and any of the branches. They look like a bunch of Woodstock partiers. They got gold teeth and ears around their neck, right? Just kind of some crazy stuff. But then us, they're like, why are you wearing white socks? I'm like, dude, just because there's internet in the world and cell phones back in modern day homeland doesn't mean I have an abundance of socks here. And black socks are stupid hot, and I can buy a white sock super cheap, and I just throw them away when I'm done using them. And it's just the asinine stuff that comes out of some of these people's mouth in the military is just really ridiculous.
Yeah.
We are not all the same.
It's not confined just to the Marines. I promise you.
I have plenty of friends in law enforcement and that community. Wow.
Yeah.
I feel for
it's
them.
like sometimes it can be like living in the Stone Age.
Yeah. And you wonder why nothing gets done.
Yeah.
You wonder why nothing truly makes changes. I mean, even in war, right? What is war in the first place? What is the global war on terrorism? Okay. Well, we saw how important that was when we pulled out, in Afghanistan, and we left there, and we literally just gave up everything, and we turned over to a terrorist organization, which now is a political government figure. And you realize it's all a sham. They don't want change, because if they did, they would send guys and girls and let them do their job, but they don't. That's why they give us these stupid ROEs. It's the dumbest thing ever. But wars are not meant to be fought. They're meant to be endured, because money and war go hand to hand. Governments love war. Government contracts love war. Everyone loves war because everyone benefits, minus the people who are actually either participating in them, or the citizens of that nation that are enduring whatever repercussions of war brings. And I caught onto that at a very early age. Actually, my first deployment, I remember my first deployment was in Fallujah, Iraq. I was in the Marine Corps I think maybe 7 months maybe. And they're like, hey, we're going to this place called Fallujah. We're like, oh, that's crazy. And we're training for SASO, which is security and stability operations. Basically, it's like a high level martial law. And we're going to go there and martial law these people. And that's not what happened. It was just straight carnage and savagery at the ultimate level of violence. And I remember on that deployment, we had a few Delta Force sniper teams with us because as a sniper, I was in a sniper platoon. We were just constantly engaging enemy combatants, and we were the hottest things to sliced bread happening in that area of operations. So these Delta teams came down. Hey, heard you guys could use a hand. And I remember on the rooftop, I'm like 18 years old, smoking a cigarette, talking to this Delta guy who's probably in his 40s, right? Now, that's a grand old man to me at 18. Yeah. And hey, did we ever find weapons of mass destruction? He just looked at me and laughed. Because that's what we went to war for, right? Well, we went to war for a bunch of things, which, whatever. It was just really funny. So when I peeked behind the veil early on in my career with just like thought process and common sense, and you kind of realize it's all a sham, but then you realize, man, the men and women you serve with, bro, the caliber of people, the experiences and opportunities, like, can't get that anywhere else. And, people ask me, on social media all the time, they're like, the war's all made up. Yeah, dude, I don't care. Everything I have in my life today is because of my time in service. My thought process, my belief in myself, my friends, my network. I don't care. I didn't re-enlist all those times because I thought I was fighting for freedom. I re-enlisted because I loved my job and I love the men and women I got to support. And people, if you try to carry the weight of the country on your back and freedom on your back, you're going to be seriously let down and disappointed. But if you find a higher calling and purpose in serving your people, I mean, look at law enforcement. Those guys and girls get paid absolutely dog crap to risk their life day in, day out. They don't get to go somewhere else to go do their policing. They do it in their own backyard. And they come home around the same turds that they're putting away, right, to try to keep people safe. They get limited funding. They get very little training and so little support, not only from the local population, but from their own departments, because they're worried about their necks and their higher ups. And it's such an insane reality that we live in. But at the same time, I'm grateful, dude. I can drive from state to state, which would be a country in another continent.
Right.
And I think most Americans take this for granted. You can drive from Texas to Oklahoma without a passport, without a visa. And we take it for granted. But if you go to any other continent out there, those states are countries. And, bro, you need all sorts of documentation. And there's different rules over there. Now, we have different rules governing each state, blah, blah, blah. But I don't care about all the shenanigans. We still have a pretty legit country. But it's the people that make this country legit. And I think the people rely too heavily on the government. They rely too heavily on the propaganda. And by realizing that it's them who make all this possible. Yeah, I've never understood why people give up their power so easily. But I love playing in this world, and I'm very grateful and appreciative because I've seen poverty at its finest. I've seen famine at its finest. I've seen war and destruction at its finest. And, yeah, we have some shenanigans happening here in America, but damn, we have it good.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And that's the people that complain about it. I like to advocate, go live in a third world country just for a year and then see if you want to come back.
Yeah, dude. My second deployment was during this big operation called Operation Steel Curtain. And we literally blitzkrieged through town to town to town to town. It was nonstop carnage. It was pretty intense, very insane. And I remember one of the cities we went through, I think it was Ubaidi, Iraq. There was this woman I saw. She was from Uganda, Nigeria maybe. She was washing clothes with her kids in this puddle of water, this puddle from a crater, and it was all muddy. She's washing clothes, and she was just happier than a pig in mud. And one of my guys spoke French, and he talked to her. He said, hey, what are you doing out here? Why are you so happy? And meanwhile, while she's washing her clothes, there's U.S. Marine tanks blowing shit up, helicopters doing gun runs. There's active combat happening behind her. She was so happy that she wasn't being raped, that her kids weren't being captured and or killed and put into the child militaries or the freedom fighters. She was so happy that her kids had a chance here. Bro, that chick had nothing. Literally nothing, and she was happy. And then we look at people in America who have zero perspective on almost anything. They have everything they want, could ever ask for. But what do we want? Because we're consumer based, we want more. But we have so much. Even our poorest, the poor have something. Like, you're not worried about like Al-Shabaab, AQIM, Hezbollah. You're not worried about those people beheading you here or raping your wife or stealing your children to make them go kill innocent people and putting them in a child war. You don't have to worry about that. And our perspectives are so skewed. But I remember that lady very, very vividly. And I remind myself whenever I get in my head about, man, I wish I had this. Man, why isn't this working out? I'm going to go home to my house that has food in it.
That has heat. That
has heat and power, dude. I'm going to go. I need gas today. I'm going to go to the gas station and pump gas in my truck. Like, as of right now, there's not a ration of this stuff. Like, how lucky am I? And, having those levels of perspectives, I never would have had if I never took this path of like, pursuing what I wanted to do.
It is. It's just as nice as Colombia was in South America. And I love that country. After the United States, that's my favorite country. But even there's still a lot, the abstract poverty everywhere. It's back when we were there back in the early 90s was haves and have-nots. There was no middle class. And the people that had didn't want to share with those that didn't have. And the point I'm making here is that living down there, I was there for 3 years, made me appreciate living in the United States. And because I was a spoiled brat too. But when you come back, and I even had an opportunity later in life to take over the leadership role of Colombia and a couple other countries within DEA. I told the boss that what living down there, as nice as it was, what it did for me is make me appreciate what I have here in the United States. Sounds like you're the same way.
Yeah, man. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah, I think you and I are on the same wavelength. We're just a couple generations apart.
Damn, and we're both handsome. Generations apart. both handsome, charming. I mean, come on.
There you go. I mean, what else could you ask for? Yeah. So in your career, you became what's known as a MARSOC Marine or a Marine Raider. Are those the same thing?
Yes.
And what does that mean? What does MARSOC mean, and what do you do to attain that?
MARSOC stands for Marine Special Operations Command. And back in 2006, 2007 timeframe, Congress is like, hey, Marine Corps is going to stand up a special operations component. Before we had that, we had our special operations component called Detachment 1, Det 1. And Det 1 was our tier 1 assets. They're doing mission target decks with like SEAL Team 6, Delta Force. And then when MARSOC component was standing up, they disbanded Detachment 1 and took all those just titans and made them team leaders inside our ranks. And so I was a force reconnaissance Marine at the time. And so force reconnaissance took down our flag, hoisted up. We called it MSOB back in the day, Marine Special Operations Battalions. Now we're called Marine Raider Battalions, MRBs, just fucking name changes.
Yeah.
Acronyms. And it's acronyms for an acronym. And now you get into MARSOC by, you have to be in at least 2 years in the Marine Corps, eligible for the promotion of E5 or sergeant. And then you go through a 30-day selection and assessment process. If you get selected after that, then you get a school date to go to our pipeline school, which is called ITC, Individual Training Course. And there you learn everything that you need to know to become a special operator. Everything from radios, medical, close quarters battle, reconnaissance and surveillance, you name it, we do it there. And after that, once you graduate, you do a 6-month language immersion course. So you do a 6 month of a language determined based upon which geographical location you'll be assigned to. So we have 3 geographical locations. And that's what you do. And the coolest thing about it is you can have any job in the Marine Corps and try out for MARSOC. Unlike to become a recon Marine or a scout sniper, you have to previously be an infantry Marine. Any infantry background, but you have to have that type of background. For MARSOC, some of my best students were intel guys. They were the dweebs in their community, but they were just studs in ours because they were just eager. They wanted to push themselves, and they didn't know that they could change jobs. And the cool thing about MARSOC, it's 100% volunteer organizations. No one says, hey, you should come out or you're going to come out for selection. No, you have to sign up. And most Marines aren't used to that level of like freedom. They don't know that they can do that stuff because it's an option. And the cool thing about MARSOC, you can quit. You can quit at selection. Most schools you cannot quit at. They won't let you quit, which is kind of stupid. But in selection, you can 100% quit. No harm, no foul. You go back to your unit. I mean, you're not going to sit well with it later on as you process these things, but you have that opportunity to quit. And to me, I think it's so awesome because most people don't have an opportunity to quit. I don't think you can quit boot camp. I just don't think you can do that.
Right.
I didn't see anyone quit or get dropped from boot camp. Like they don't lower the standard, but they find where your weakness and they push you past that and they get you up to snuff for it. And but in special operations, it's not the case. You either meet the standard or you don't. You either successfully complete it or you quit or you don't get selected or you get let go. And that's pretty cool, So you kind of like weed out a lot of the people, and it's still not 100% accuracy, but it's significantly better and more dynamic than probably the 90% of the military in itself.
I think too, what your final product is that people volunteered to be there and they have the ability to focus on a mission and finish and complete the mission, not give up. But how long was all of that training for MARSOC? How long did that last? And what language did you learn?
So 9, 10, 11, 12. It's about a year's long training, year and a month, 13 months, 30 days selection, 9 months of training, 6 months of language. And when I made it to MARSOC did not have a language program at the time. What happened was, I remember I was at Fort Benning. I was at jump school, airborne school with the Army. I come back from jump school and they're like, hey, force is going away. MARSOC is starting up. I'm like, MARSOC, like, what is all this stuff? And I remember they passed out these no shave shits. Everyone can start growing out your hair. Everyone wears civilian clothes every day now. And you'll have this card with only a number on there. If anyone gives you shit on base, you just hand them this card. We're like, oh, we made it to the big leagues. This is epic. And they chose force reconnaissance to start that up because force reconnaissance, even though they were recon Marines, they go to the same recon school that recon guys go to. There's a different indoctrination program to even get into force reconnaissance. It's a whole different selection process. So at the time, that was probably our top tier selection that we had access to achieve or to become anything. And that lasted 2 weeks. And they're like, cut your hair, get in your uniform. They just straight up put the Marine Corps thumb on you and just completely took away the flame. But
the general came around and said, "Who are all these shaggy looking people?"
Yeah, dude, it was dumb. And at that time, we were heavily engaged in Afghanistan. There wasn't even a schoolhouse to train MARSOC guys. For the first few years, it was just force reconnaissance guys that we assumed the role of MARSOC. We stood it up. And we were just back-to-back deployments to Afghanistan. At the time, we started off with 3 companies, 3 teams per company. And I mean, you could come back from one rotation and hop right into another workup and go right back to another deployment within a year later. Some guys were coming home for 60 to 90 days and going right back on a hot field because we were just taking so many casualties in the heat of the global war on terrorism in Afghanistan. Yeah. In 2008 or 9, I believe, we started up our pipeline course. I actually took orders to go to North Carolina to start what would be called ITC, Individual Training Course, our MARSOC pipeline. So you get out there, and I was the first 4 West Coast guys to go to the East Coast. It was a whole new dynamics because the East Coast guys, they do things completely different, and we're the Hollywood outcast, and these are the redneck Coors Light drinkers. We're the IPA and sushi. And it was just a weird dynamic, and that lasted maybe six months, and then we started bringing in our first students. I actually taught the first 3 ITC courses. I taught our advanced sniper course, I taught basic reconnaissance surveillance, and I taught patrolling. And those guys got the language training because those things were not put in place during my upcoming inside the organization.
Yeah. So you're just still speaking California.
Yeah, I'm speaking California. I remember my first time out in North Carolina. I get out there and it's all new and foreign, and you're right next to what they call the flagpole because the headquarters of Marine Corps is out there, the East Coast. Everyone is just completely a California Marine in any job. Once you're off, you're in flip-flops and board shorts living your life, and no one cares. In the East Coast, in Camp Lejeune, no. There are people that hate their lives so much that are waiting to see you in unauthorized civilian attire out in town they call life you out. I sold my truck to this young Marine in North Carolina, and he had a cross rocket, a Ninja or something. Yeah. And he's wearing a t-shirt and shorts, and I get on my bike, and we had to go get this title notarized. So we're riding, and dude, I see this car. in my mirrors, just sharking us, right? Just sharking us behind, trying to get by. And it just gave me that spidey sense of this is not right. And I'm in Jacksonville, North Carolina, which is like the armpit of America. And there's nothing but barbershops, dry cleaners, strip clubs, and car dealerships. That's it. And I remember us pulling into the parking lot to get notarized, and we get out for bikes to start walking, and this dude gets out with a stupid haircut. And he's like, hey, get over here. Are you a Marine? And I'm like, do I look like a Marine to you? And I'm like, covered in tattoos. I had long hair, long hair for a Marine. And he's like, what about you? Are you a Marine? He's like, oh, yeah, I'm a Marine. I'm like, dummy. So he's like, let me see your ID card. And the doofus handed him his ID card, and he's like, I'm calling your command. You're not supposed to be wearing shorts and short sleeve shirt on a motorcycle. It's just stupid stuff.
Oh my gosh. Get a life, pal.
Dude, I remember when I was in sniper school, this is 2004, it was Thanksgiving weekend. And so we had 4 days off from sniper school. Sniper school was like no easy cakewalk. I remember they call it the grinder, the big parade deck on Camp Pendleton, where sniper school is at. We're parked there, and we just got off for the day, and we're going into a 4-day break. And my buddy John is talking to me. I'm in my truck. He's talking to me outside of it. He has his cover off, his hat, his military hat off. So he's just in his uniform, his hat's off. This super fat master, he was a master sergeant, and he pulls up in his Escalade with his whole entire family inside the car and starts to life out my buddy because he doesn't have his cover on. And we're like, oh my God, how embarrassing for that dude's family, and how pathetic can this guy's life be? And some people would say, a standard is a standard. Let me tell you something, Steve. That same idiocracy in the States, sure, it carries over into combat. I remember on my second deployment when I was telling you we're just like blitzkrieging through all these towns and cities. We got to come back to a big base to like refit, resupply, and get some sleep. And I didn't have a cover, like hat. The fuck? No one's carrying a hat in combat. It ain't happening. It's not a thing. Right. And the guy's, where's your cover? He's like, you can't come into the chow hall. You don't have your cover out here. I'm like, I just got out of the field, dude. I just got out of a war, and this guy is a first sergeant. So a first sergeant in the Marine Corps is like the nanny you never wanted. It's the sibling you never wanted. It's the parents you never wanted. It's the relationship you never wanted. It's like a thorn in your butt you never asked for. And not all of them, full disclaimer, not all of them. One of my best friends' name's Jake Jones. He was a first sergeant. That guy is the absolute man. However, his peer group, for the most part, sucked. And if it wasn't, I didn't have a cover. It was that my guys' uniforms were too dirty. What did they expect us to do? Wash my shit out there? There was no sleep. It's just constant fighting, very minimum support, very minimum rations. And I just always boggled my mind how there was two wars going on. There was the reality of war that the young men and women were fighting, and there was the other perspective of war that these people that never left the fire base, like they were still holding on to that stateside mannerisms of like, why aren't you squared away? I'm like, we just annihilated a whole civilization. We lost 6 guys. Sorry that I didn't polish my boots before I went into your dusty ass chow hall to eat your shitty ass sea rations. It just
they lose perspective on what's important.
Yeah, man. But that's just the indoctrination of it. That's the disconnectedness that the military has to offer. And the really unfortunate thing about MARSOC was that we brought over first sergeants to fill billets inside of our companies. And so these guys, and how a first sergeant works, if I'm an infantry guy, so let's say I pick up the rank at E7, okay? That's called a gunnery sergeant. If I'm an infantry guy and I want to become a first sergeant, they don't let me stay in an infantry unit. They usually send me to a completely different non-combat arms unit so they cross-pollinate the knowledge. Right. So where do you think those non-combat guys go? They come to places like ours. And they're like, why do you have Velcro in your uniform? Why is your gun painted? Why are you wearing a ball cap? All this stupid stuff. And it's just, the Marine Corps has a way to make you feel that you're not special. And MARSOC did not let loose with that mindset. And they say every Marine's special. That's simply not the case. There's a bunch of douchebag Marines out there. There's a bunch of douchebag anyone's out there. And it really takes the fire out of these men and women's souls that they just get demoralized and belittled and not respected.
Yeah.
It's just super unfortunate. And talking to a lot of my friends in law enforcement, it's like the same way, dude. It's loopers. Because Without those people, those organizations would never exist. I'm not saying you got to bend the rules, but we're not cleaning muskets and like standing in line in open fields like idiots anymore, right? We have thought processes. Most of the guys as the infantry with and MARSOC with as team guys, they had bachelor's degrees, some had master's degrees, a few had doctorate degrees. They weren't idiots, but we're getting talked to like 18-year-old little boys by these grown men who have zero perspective of what their mission is. And that's to support, not kill our flames.
There you go.
Yeah, I never understood it.
I had the fortune to work a year and a half with some of the Delta operators and the Dev Group operators down in South America, and they were just all about can do. Nothing get them upset. I tried working out with them. When I run, I would run for distance, set a distance, or I'd set a time limit. Those guys ran till they got bored. I'm like, how do you do? I don't have that level of commitment, but I understand completely what you're saying there. And we've been going now, believe it or not, for right about an hour. So what we're going to do, Cody, is I want to invite you back for tomorrow's episode, for episode 2. For all our listeners, we're just scratching the surface here. I'm really wrestling. I've got my notes over here, and I'm really wrestling on what to cut out, because this could be, dude, I could have you on here for 4 to 6 hours. I'm enjoying the stories that I'm hearing here. But for all you listeners, please come back tomorrow. Here's part 2 of Cody Alford's, his whole life. We're going to get into some things that you probably are not going to expect us to talk about. But Cody has been very open and transparent. He's never held back. If you go look him up on any of the social media sites, and we'll discuss those at the end of part 2, where you can find more out about Cody and his businesses and the different things he's involved with. But I think you might be surprised at what you're going to hear tomorrow's episode. So, guys, thank you so much for being here today. Cody, brother, thank you so much for coming on and telling us these stories. I love it. And we're going to continue tomorrow. In the meantime, everybody stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow for part 2.